Happy Wednesday, or whatever day of the week it is for you. I am so excited because if you were a sumoling that purchased Puzzle, they recently came out with an amazing feature which had me really appreciating a new AppSumo software. So before I get to the new AppSumo software, which you can tell by the title, it is NextStep. Before I get there, I just want to spend a few seconds on the new feature that Puzzle just released. And I am so sorry if you did not get the chance to get Puzzle while it was on AppSumo, but it is available as a subscription. If you did, you may or may not have seen that they recently came out with their new AI functionality. The AI functionality that they came out with is across all plans and platforms now. So if you purchased it on AppSumo, you have access to 200 credits that allows you to use this feature. Nova is the embedded AI in Puzzle that allows you to tell it either with a file that has a list of tools and how you plan on using it and their relationship to each other, or you can type into the chat exactly what the process is you want to create and which tools you're using for different parts of the process, and it will map out your process for you, which had me thinking that as I was looking at the new list of AppSumo products, NextStep could be incredibly helpful in this journey of making our organizations more resilient by having clear, documented processes, but also the documentation that allows us to do those processes well. And that's where Next Step comes in. So let's say you have your process mapped out well in Puzzle. And the benefit of using Puzzle is it's going to tell you how much a process is going to cost your organization to run, because it's tracking all of your tools and how much those tools cost. And then when you create a workflow, it then allows you to cost out each of your workflows. And when you include people in your teams and have information about the amount of money it costs per hour for a team member, and you start to get a better sense of how long things take to get done, you begin to get an actual dollar amount to help you better plan for how you manage the capacity, the work and capacity of your team, and whether or not something uh, needs to be done on a regular basis or maybe just once in a while because of the costs involved and the resources involved to run that process. So Puzzle is amazing as a tool that can help you get a big picture of how your organization runs. And it takes time to get all of this up and running. So I am still working on this for my nonprofit and for my business. So we are a work in progress. So don't feel bad if you don't have all of this together. Most of us don't, but we can aspire. In terms of aspirations, I am not going to do this today, but in the future, I am going to record the process of me building out our marketing workflows. So I'm going to just start with our website and our blog functionality and how we manage the website and add content, how we track the analytics for the websites, SEO, all that good stuff. So that is a process I will record and document for you so you can see how Nova can help you do that. But today's focus is really on Next Step. And I'm excited about it because it fills a gap that is in Puzzle, not to any fault of their own. It's a gap that I have experienced and have wasted a lot of time racking my brain and testing tools out to see how I can accomplish what Next Step has already figured out how to accomplish. And that is to create the kinds of documentation that can help you get each part of your process done, particularly those things that are most important to your team in terms of success, and especially the things that are public facing. So, for context, this is Next Step. It basically allows you to document the details of parts of your process so that team members, external partners, whether it's a client, a vendor, can do the requisite things in order to move work forward, whether it's just getting onboarded all the way to getting day to day work done, like managing the website. For example, and specifically adding the requisite blog for their program to the website using our tools that we use. In this instance, we're revamping our entire website using Rigora for the nonprofit. I know right now I'm in all aces, but just rock with me here for a second. So for Next Leadership, that's what we're in the process of doing, which is why this I had this kind of eureka moment on how this could be helpful. So the gap that I see and that I've experienced is you have a series of steps that you want done, and I'm actually going to go back to puzzle to show you this. So you have a series of steps, and I'm just going to pull up um, I'm going to pull up a something that we already have in here. You can see that we have our different programs in here, and there's some we're still working on where we're building out the different processes associated with programs. And if you go into any one of these where we're still working on building this stuff out, you'll see that we have kind of our recruitment and hiring process for the young people. This specifically is for our summer program. And that part of the process has a series of steps necessary to make it happen that you wouldn't put in here necessarily. And what the puzzle system is designed for is for you to put a video or a checklist or a link or details of a standard operating procedure or SOP that will allow you to allow the person who's responsible for doing that to have a checklist or have guidance on how they're supposed to get that particular part of the process done. But the challenge is you can have a checklist in here and someone can look at it, but it doesn't track for each time a person has to go through this process if they actually did the thing. And if it is a recurring process, then um, it you don't have a way to track the each time someone actually had to run that process or go through the process to get that thing or that part of the process done. Hopefully you're following me here. So instead of just having a checklist or building out something in ClickUp or Notion or even FuseBase where you're trying to recreate this functionality, NextStep has already created it for us. So here is an example. This is the default um, process that comes in the system that allows you to just see the different, the way that the tool works. So I'm just going to get rid of the side menu there so you can see this. So we're in the tutorial process. These are all of the parts of the process that we need to make sure it gets documented, whether it's for compliance reasons, whether it's to better understand how much time it takes someone to do it. So if you click on any one of these, it opens up a a space where the person who's responsible for getting this process done can look at this particular step in the process to get it done. You can add all different types of content in here. You can assign people, add due dates, all that stuff. And then we even have webhooks as a feature here. And on the roadmap is also API connections. Within each of these, you can have the information the person needs for that particular part of the process, and they can go through it and make sure that they're doing each step. Now, the reason the webhooks are so important is because here's an example of a part of a process that has data inputs. And because you can collect data as a part of a process or steps in a process, you can then push it somewhere else, like to Table, and then incorporate it into your database or whatever you're using, whether it's if you want to use FuseBase as the place you're pushing this information to inside their databases. Once the API is up and running, we'll be able to do that. So all of that to say, this is really powerful way to make sure that each part of a process gets done. And let me just show you some more examples of the types of documentation that you can have to support a successful process run. And then you can see that there were some required fields in here before I click away that someone would have to fill out. Think about vendors and client onboarding and things like that, where you're collecting information and as a part of their onboarding process. So we'll come back to that. And then here you have a dependency where I can't do this until I do these other things. So I can't get past this until some prerequisite that I've identified is done. Then I can move on to the next step. You can drag and drop content to other sections as you're building out your steps in the sections of a process that you're building out. And remember, I referenced the challenge of sometimes there are things that just have to be done on a regular basis. For example, I need to reconcile our records, our bank account information every month, right? Do I do it every month? Not always, but the goal is that I should be doing it every month. And there's a certain series of steps that I need to go through in order to make sure that it is done well and that I am held accountable to making sure not only that it is done well, but that it actually gets done. Which brings me to the templates that they have. So there are currently over 30 templates they have in the system right now for you to work from. And I mentioned I'm not every month I know I'm supposed to go in and close out our billing. Well, now there's a template set up. I can adjust it how I need to, put in the information necessary, and you can update these to match your particular process and requirements. And you can see that this task is locked because these other things need to be done in order to do this well and to check off that each of the subledgers were closed out the way they need to be. And then you can see the reporting and approval here, which are also locked because all of these things need to get done first before we can move on here. So it's a great accountability tool and also a way to measure how long it's taking me to actually do this every month. And I might find that it's actually not as much time as I make it out to be because I don't really want to do it. This is an amazing way to make sure that the processes we repeat on a regular basis are documented. And if I am not available, then I can have somebody else step in and fill in the gaps. And you can train people how to do things, but they forget if they don't do them right away, right? So if I prepare someone to be able to do something and it was 6 months ago and now I need them to step in and do that thing, they're not going to remember. I need something to make sure they go through all the steps, but that it's clear to them and me that they did all the things necessary in order to say this is actually done, that the definition of done is clear, and all of those steps it took to reach that definition of done are actually completed. I will test this out more in order to share with you the use case, a specific use case, and how I am implementing it. In my mind, the way this will work is I'll have everything visualized in Puzzle so that we're clear about all the tools that we use and all of those things, big picture and all the account information and all that stuff lives in Puzzle. And then here is how you actually do all the stuff that is required to move along the processes we have in Puzzle. And once it's done, so I'm going to come back to the tutorial process. And in this tutorial process, I am just going to grab the link, share process. And if I grab this link, I can go into our Next Leadership Development Fuse-based portal. I'm going to add in a embed block, a custom embed. I'm just going to call this test next step. I'm going to paste the URL in. I am going to, this is just a tip if you're creating apps for internal use. For example, Table. When you create an interface into the back end of sensitive data, you want to turn the show embed link off so that people can't open up the link in another browser tab and see the URL and share that URL with someone else by accident or whatever the case. So just in terms of risk mitigation, just turn that show embed link off when you're putting embeds in here. I'm going to change this to 6 columns, which means it's going to go across the whole screen of the portal page. 3 columns would be half. So we're going to do 6 columns. And for height, I don't like to leave it on auto. I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger. I'm just going to make it maybe like 600. Let's see how that goes and add. So by virtue of doing this, now the steps to this process are documented right here in FuseBase. Don't have to log in. Click Start to get going and get going. And in the back end of the data, we can see the process was run, all the steps that were completed, the time it took to complete all of the steps. And you can see here, I can maximize this so that this is the taking up more of the screen and I can just get going in the process. That's how I'm envisioning using NextStep. The last thing I'll say here, just because I mentioned it earlier, is the for this block, if I click on settings and bring it back up, this is what happens if this is turned on. So I'm going to save it. And now there's this window, this option, and what it will do is open it up in a completely new window, exposing the URL to the user, who can then copy and paste it and share it with other people. So just a word of caution as you're embedding content into your FuseBase portal. Let me close that and click on the settings icon again and just turn that off. Click save, and now that option is gone. So the only way they can interact with it is here in the portal. Now on the back end of NextStep, if I expand this, and I look at active processes, you can see all the different runs. And it's based on a link, the link that I copied and pasted out of NextStep and embedded in the FuseBase portal here. And if it's assigned to someone, then you basically know that it's that person or someone who is helping them out who is running that particular process. And you can see how much it's run, what the status of it is, what the due dates are. I didn't put any due date when I shared the link, but when you grab the link, you can put a due date on it. And you can see each instance of a process run. So all of these are for the same process. They're just different runs of the same process. That's next step. I'm really excited to dig deeper into this, but I just wanted to show it to you because it is very promising. And of all the tools that were on AppSumo, at this point, I feel like I'm just looking for tools that can help really accelerate our business and the work that we do with our partners, as well as our agency work. So, hope that was helpful. I hope that you are excited like I am about these things. And even if you're not as excited as I am, maybe excited a little bit. And I hope you have an amazing rest of the day. As always, I'm sending so much love, hope, and intentional action. And I look forward to seeing you again soon.